Hello and welcome to the Scramble. I am UNLV-TV. Today is all about the federal government. It almost feels like the snowball effect. Last week we talked about the IRS admitting that it targeted conservative groups, and today we'll discuss the fact that the Department of Justice seized without notice phone records from the Associated Press, a move that has the media, many in the media, and many Americans demanding a full accounting. We'll also talk about the new hearings on the Benghazi attacks. That's also an unfolding drama. Please welcome my panel. We have with us today Mark Ciavola. You're a junior and two-term president of CSUN, political science major. So much information. Eric Leach, you are also a political science major, and you, sir, are a sophomore. Back with us is Cassidy Blue, the bona fide senior.
Yes, ma'am.
Graduating in December in journalism and media studies. And we also have Ryan Hamilton. You are our graduate student of the day, and you are pursuing your master's, correct?
That's right.
Journalism and media studies as well. Thank you all for being on the show. Let us jump right into it. All right, the CEO of the Associated Press has called it a massive and unprecedented intrusion by the Department of Justice that the phone records of more than 20 work and private phone lines were seized by federal investigators without notice. The CEO of the Newspaper Association of America said that the actions of the DOJ, quote, shock the American conscience and violate the critical freedom of the press protected by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, end quote. DOJ officials, including Attorney General Eric Holder, President Obama, defend taking the phone records, saying there was a serious, and I quote Eric Holder here, very, very serious security threat to the American public. Let's not minimize a security threat in any way, but do you think that these actions were justified? Should they have been given notice? Eric?
They weren't justified at all. I mean, how far are we going to continue to say in the name of security to get access to records and we're essentially spying on reporters, which is something we would expect in Eastern Europe, not here in the United States. So I mean, I think Attorney General Eric Holder should resign because I mean, he didn't know anything about Fast and Furious. He didn't know anything about all these things. But no, he needs to be held accountable for his own agency, which seems to keep violating our own laws. So I think he should resign as well. On top of criminal charges against whoever authorized or took a part of the spying on the AP.
So you don't think that there's anything that actually justifies the article that was written about the terror attacks and terrorist threat in Yemen? You don't think that that is justified in any way?
No.
Part of the. You should also be brought up on charges of stupidity. Unless the cabal was between journalists, there's got to be a different source that you can target. In this particular instance, the administration claims that they were trying to stop a leak out of the White House office. Then tap the White House phones. Don't tap the AP phones. The administration probably doesn't want anyone tapping the White House phones because then someone might know about what's going on in Benghazi. So instead they're tapping the AP phones, which is the last place you want to tap. The chilling effect on the press will be monumental unless this is pushed back against, not only by the press, but through criminal charges if it comes out that these subpoenas were issued improperly. The administration and the government should tap phones of the press as a last resort. I'm talking about impending terror, right? Tomorrow, the next day. And even then, they should exhaust every alternative that exists before tapping a media phone. That's just all there is to it.
Well, I'm not sure that I've actually heard that it was phone tapping. They have seized the phone records.
And they tapped the phones in the Capitol building as well. The AP phone bank was tapped by the Department of Justice. The same phone bank that AP reporters used to talk to members of Congress about stories. Tapped. Listened into.
Ooh, so Cassidy, what say you about this?
I mean, I'm in full agreement with everybody on the panel.
Well, Mark hasn't spoken yet,
well,
so
with
who
the
knows?
two that have spoken, with those two that have spoken, it's a travesty. It's horrible. It's going to have a chilling effect on the press, and it's really scary to think if criminal charges don't, or repercussions don't happen to the people who authorize seizing these phone records, what effect that this will have. I mean, it's bad enough that they did it, and now, I mean, now it's done. But if there are no repercussions for these actions, I mean, who knows? Where do you go from here?
Firing these people isn't going to do it. I mean, there needs to be more than just firings.
There doesn't seem to be anybody talking about, I mean, other than some people in the media, the government seems to be backing this with full support. Obama said very recently, Eric Holder has his full faith and support as he launches his criminal investigation into the IRS troubles. So obviously he doesn't have a problem with how the DOJ is being run. Eric? Eric, Mark, is that something that you think is?
You know, I want to take this in a little different direction for a moment,
By
because
all
I mean, I
means.
do agree with everyone on the panel today that this is just unconscionable. But I would like to know when this president and the members of his administration are going to finally take responsibility for all of the mess that they keep creating. You know, Eric said a moment ago, it's not enough that you fire them, which I have to say, for consistency's sake, also applies to the IRS issue we spoke about last week. But, you know, I would like to know when this president is going to be a president and is actually going to take responsibility for this. I would say that Eric Holder should resign, but I would sound like a broken record because I seem to be saying that every 6 months, because Eric Holder continues and continues to disappoint the American people. And in my opinion, leadership comes from the top. And unfortunately, President Obama surrounds himself with people who should not be in their positions and who these things continue to happen under.
Do you think the government has just gotten, you know, we were talking about the IRS, huge agency. You know, it's hard to be responsible or in control of these huge. The government is huge, and Obama has through his years as president has sought to increase the size of government in many ways that many people are very supportive of. But now it seems that there are so many issues, a couple big ones, that really are just kind of snowballing.
I think that there's a big issue with the secrecy surrounding this administration and how it prosecutes people. I mean, look at Bradley Manning. You know, his trial's going on right now, and half of it has been closed out to the press because it's all secret proceedings and information can't be released. This administration has a real big problem with secrecy and with the flow of information and with the press. I mean, just look at the way that they have handled the Bradley Manning situation and all the other whistleblower situations in, you know, the last few years.
This is the most transparent administration in U.S. history.
Well,
you didn't know that? Look,
In 2008, that is the touchstone. Transparency will be the touchstone.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring you
this
back to
administration.
2008 again, because I'm going to tell you that this is what happens when you elect somebody with no executive experience at all, who then fills his cabinet with 7%. 7% of his administration had executive experience. I mean, this is an administration that is ill-equipped to run this country, and it has been for the last 5 years. And Americans went to the polls last November and re-elected the biggest failure in the presidential history of this country.
Well, I would hardly say the biggest failure, and a lot of the secret, a lot of the secret policies and things that Obama has done is only piggybacking off of what a Bush and Cheney administration
I know, of course.
put
He
into
was
place.
late to his press
No,
conference
I'm
this
not.
morning because of Bush as well.
Please, I am
Please
not.
tell me who's a bigger failure
No,
than President
I'm not.
Obama
I'm
and his
not
administration.
saying that he doesn't have some personal responsibility
My
for
dear
this.
friends,
I'm just saying the
I have
secrecy
some
around
very
this
bad news.
administration.
We have to take a short break.
On the other side, can we
When
find
we
out who the bigger failure is?
We can try, but I'm not sure we'll find out. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think you found every hazard out here today? Think again. The spot you missed could be a killer. That spot on your skin could be skin cancer. Fact is, if you're a man over 50, you're in a group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma, the kind that kills one person every hour. 1 in 5 Americans is likely to develop a form of skin cancer during their lifetime. That's why your best shot is to check for a spot. It's easy. Follow through and check your skin. It could be the save of a lifetime. Go to spotskincancer.org to find out how. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
So many kids' activities today seem to leave out the activity part. New research tells us that just getting children to walk an extra 35 minutes a day could spare them the pain of thinning bones later in life. Encourage your kids to get up, get out, and get moving.
Hello. Hey, Grandma, how about another grape soda?
A public service message on building strong bones for kids from the Pediatric Orthopedic Society of North America and the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
We are deep in discussion about the fact that federal investigators have seized phone records from the Associated Press. This has snowballed into which administration was the bigger failure. During the break, we did not resolve it, so I will not share that with you. I'm sure you're all very surprised. But I would like to refocus this again with the Associated Press. Is this a violation of their First Amendment? Is this something that needs to be taken very seriously?
Absolutely. I mean, part of the problem with this administration, and I think when it goes back to leadership, what Mark is saying, is there's been no accountability. Anytime that something bad has happened in the past, the administration has either forced out one of their opponents or just not dealt with it.
Or it's Bush's fault.
Right, or it's Bush's
No,
fault.
that's wrong to do, because I didn't say that it was Bush's fault.
may not say it.
I said Obama should take personal responsibility for his decisions, but I said that the Bush-Cheney administration opened up the can of worms to have this secrecy shrouding the White House.
Transparent administration in the U.S.
Okay,
history.
those are your words, not mine.
They're President Obama's words.
Well, you just said them. I didn't. So.
Well, the point is that this administration has no accountability, and if we're to take the rule of law seriously, there has to be repercussions. It's a violation of the press's ability to communicate freely. I'm not sure in what jurisdictions they were collected, but many journalists are protected by law from revealing their sources. So any kind of government infringement on that necessarily has to be pushed back on. Those people in the administration who did so, if it's found out that it wasn't done lawfully, should face a penalty, including jail or fines or whatever else any other citizen would do.
Congress needs to exercise its oversight powers. I mean, we're having, there's multiple issues now where privacy and illegal activity is happening, and there's a couple firings or reshuffling of positions, and that's it. I mean, it's lending credence to the tinfoil hat people who think Big Brother's coming out to get you. I mean, these stories lends credence to it. I mean, these are just the two stories that we know of. How far does it go? How often does it happen? Like, we don't know. So I think Congress needs to exercise its oversight powers and investigate and figure out what's going on, and if new legislation is needed, then pass whatever needs to be passed to protect privacy.
I mean, what's insane to me is that 2 weeks ago, this administration needed to do nothing but leave the media alone for a soft pillow to fall on. And now it's found that he's poking around, that he's targeting journalists, that he's tapping their phones. I mean, it's bizarre to me that in a climate where the media is so friendly to the administration, that these are the actions that they're taking. I mean, it shows something very Nixonian about the president in terms of his desire to be in control of all operations.
That was actually a direct question at the press conference recently that he had, and he said, I will let you read the history books and decide for yourself whether or not that is a parallel can be made to this. But this is obviously, is this the beginning of as you say, I mean, I think that many of us, whether conservatives, liberals, are kind of aware of the fact that the media tends to like Obama. Much of the public likes Obama. Is there something turning the tide right now, or will this just all disappear?
I think he poked around too much now, and I think it's going to start changing. At least the media's, the way they cover him and the different policy issues.
Will they though, or will they have their phone taps? I mean, that chilling effect that we're talking about.
Well, cat's out of the bag. Can't do it now. You can't do it now because the Republicans in Congress would impeach him immediately for any slight overreach at this point. So now the press has got pretty much free reign.
How will they know?
But
This was
impeachment's not going to go anywhere. I mean, just like Bill Clinton, it's not going to go anywhere.
I mean, I don't disagree, but it's the only. I mean, it's the option on the table.
But there is no option because all it will be is a circus because it can't go anywhere.
I mean, I don't necessarily see the fact.
Depends how the public views it.
If the public views it or what overreach has gone. I don't think that you can just say he won't be impeached. I mean, you can't shoot a man tomorrow in the street and not be impeached. I mean, something would happen to that. So depending on the overreach against the press, there's a check that's there, right? But the Republicans in the House are definitely on the scent, is my point, impeachment or not. And they're going to run the interference necessary for the media. But the question is does the media have it in them to strike back against this administration, which heretofore they have loved and coddled?
Well, we may have to leave this topic right there. Some powerful closing words from Ryan Hamilton. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this administration and with the new Benghazi hearings. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you could see anything in the world, what would it be?
I'd love to see Paris. I like to see cupcakes falling from the sky.
My daughter, married and happy.
I want to see things the way I used to.
chances are someone you love may one day be affected by macular degeneration or glaucoma. Log on to seeabettertomorrow.org or call 1-800-437-2423 to learn about glaucoma and macular degeneration. Call 1-800-437-2423 or log on to seeabettertomorrow.org.
I just want to see more of the things I love.
I remember the moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
That moment?
It was a moment that changed my life. I'd been training with my team for months, and now we had been called up for the first time. The real deal. Wildfires were getting dangerously close to homes. At that moment, I got my first taste of just how important the Guard is to my community.
See how the Guard can be an important part of your life at NationalGuard.com.
We have certainly not wrapped up our conversation on the Associated Press, but we will move on because there's never enough time here. So let's move on to another little bit of a sore spot. Benghazi is back in the news. Testimony from so-called whistleblowers has reignited speculation that the Obama administration intentionally misled the American public about the terror attack that killed 4 Americans. Obama called these hearings a sideshow, and most Democrats agree that the shortcomings and failures regarding the Benghazi situation have already been addressed. Many others, mainly Republicans, feel this was a tragedy of political proportions, an intentional cover-up during a tough re-election campaign. Do you think that this tragedy, and let's not forget the fact that it is a tragedy, as politicized as it seems to be, does it warrant more investigation? Eric?
I mean, they already have done their independent reports on it. I mean, there was high-level State Department failures, but at the same time, I don't think it goes all the way to the top. I mean, it came down to an undersecretary, I believe, that didn't allocate enough protection for that embassy. But we also have to realize Congress cut diplomatic protection funding for embassies. So, I mean, there's a whole slew of things that went wrong. I'm not saying, I think within the State Department there should have been some firings just based off negligence in regards to Libya, but at the same time they didn't really have the funding necessary to adequately defend all the embassies that we have, because we have quite a few. So when Congress cuts funding for diplomatic security, it has to come out from somewhere, and it's up to that undersecretary to allocate where the funding goes.
So you think this is just,
I think as far as the cover-up goes, I mean, I haven't read super deep into
all
it.
100
but
emails?
No, I haven't read super deep into it, but based off the report, the independent investigative report, it was failures within the State Department that went up to the undersecretary positions, or whoever handles the operations for diplomatic security. So I don't think it's some ridiculous cover-up, though.
Cassidy, what do you think about this one?
I have to agree with Eric. I mean, talking points are just, they're an everyday thing in politics, and I mean, to manipulate talking points it's like breathing when it comes to politicians. So I just don't understand why we are wasting our efforts talking about Benghazi again. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that like you said, I mean, independent investigations were done, and I think that people have been held accountable. Hillary Clinton is no longer, Secretary of State. She stepped down because of Benghazi. So, I mean,
that's not true.
I don't
Likely
think
because she had a stroke.
That is entirely not the case.
she had a stroke.
Oh yeah,
She had a headache. She banged her head.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, what say you about Benghazi? What is the?
Me?
Is this being over politicized?
No, absolutely
or
not.
Is this a big issue?
Maureen Dowd, noted liberal columnist, and
rightfully.
Yes,
so.
Catholic University, my alma mater alum, had to say that the Obamas are adopting the Clintonian model of politics. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. That's old news. Right, which is exactly what has happened between you two today, right? It's not true what happened, it's already been addressed. Which is it, right? If it's not true, then it's not true. And if it's old news, and we've already covered it, and there's been an independent report, then is it still not true? Right, I question your use of the word independent. The problem is that if there's no cover-up, why was one of the main whistleblowers demoted? Why does the CIA have documents they've been able to produce that says that the talking points that the administration used were essentially lies, not just misleading, not just trying to spin, full-on lies. Petraeus is quoted as saying, I don't want to use any of them because They either didn't know or it wasn't true to the account of the situation. To say that it doesn't go all the way to the top is probably true. The president doesn't control every aspect of his administration, but he's still the president. This comes back to an issue of leadership. If the country falls apart under his leadership, it's not going to be because of something he did or didn't do directly, but it will be because of the tone that he sets in terms of accountability and direction, which he hasn't set, that allows things like this to happen. That's the problem, and that's the problem with this administration.
We're going to have to take another short break. That was nice timing. I didn't even have to interrupt you that time. When we come back, Mark Ciavola has not weighed in yet. We're going to hear what he has to say. Is this old news or is this a big deal? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
She passed away about 6 months ago. Sure, yeah, they missed their mom. It was hard to learn that there was no cure. You know, you don't want to see somebody that you love suffer. So we sought hospice care. Hospice people made her feel comfortable and pain-free. At first, the girls didn't know what was going on. The girls knew that Mommy was sick, that Mommy wasn't feeling well, but they didn't know that Mommy was going to die. I don't always have the answers, the best answers to the questions that they're going to ask about what's going on, and often the hospice people would be there, and they helped. You know, they helped me and the girls through just an incredibly hard time.
Is the color that your skin was meant to be no longer beautiful? Every year, millions of young women try to change the skin they were born with and say they die for darker skin. Sadly, some actually do. Melanoma is the second most common cancer in teens and young adults, and one person dies from melanoma every hour. Change your thinking, not your skin. Stop tanning. Learn more at spotskincancer.org. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Welcome back from the break. We've had a great time. Believe it or not, we're talking about something completely off topic. We'll talk about gun control perhaps on our next show. Let's get back to Benghazi. Mark, you've not had a chance to weigh in here. Do you you agree with Cassidy and Eric that this is, it's kind of beating a dead horse? Is it over politicized? Is it?
To avoid the obvious joke here. Look, this is ridiculous.
Will you explain that to me later?
No,
I really missed
this
it.
is ridiculous, and it's just another in a long line of failures by the biggest failure in presidential history. This is
rub it in.
Look, if the American public had known half of this stuff before the election, we could have a different president today. And whether you like Barack Obama or you like Mitt Romney or you like Ron Paul or you like Hillary Clinton or whoever, it doesn't matter, because in America, people should know what's going on, and when they go to the ballot box to vote for their leader for the next 4 years, they should be voting based on what actually has happened in their administration. And the American people were misled, and they were misled going into an election. Now that he is in for the next 4 years, we have found out that this is a colossal failure and cover-up, that language was scrubbed a dozen times to make sure that it had no references to reality whatsoever. They put Susan Rice out there as their the face of this issue, who knew nothing about anything other than what she was told to say, and now we're going to make her the head of the NSA? I mean, this is ludicrous. And again, I'm still waiting for when this president's going to be a president and stand up and take responsibility. This comes back to accountability and leadership, two of the things that he does not have.
Well, and I think, you're saying, yes, this is a big deal. I don't see in much of the coverage that I've read on this, I think a lot of people do think this is more about midterm elections than anything else. That Democrats are really framing this in a way this is not a big deal. Republicans are saying, no, it is a big deal. And the media is just kind of...
Well, but let's be honest, the media never really covered this to begin with. I mean, this goes back to all the other things the media has refused to cover adequately.
Independent media investigation about what happened in Benghazi, and I think it's important, particularly because Obama scored a big punch against Romney in the debates on the Benghazi issue by accusing him of politicizing an issue, when at the very same time his administration was politicizing the talking points to make him look like a better opponent against terrorism and not reporting on the fact. I mean, it does so much, even if it's about it does so much to reveal the character of the administration and the extent to which they are willing to go to manipulate the truth, to make themselves look the way that they want to look.
Well, we're running out of time. Mark brought up the point, if the American people had known, we could have a different president right now. Cassidy, how could the American people have known? You know, they've elected this man twice.
Like I said before, I think that they did discuss this before the election. Yes, there were certain things that were not concrete.
I'm gonna have to put you two on
so
other
there were
sides of
certain
the
things
table
that were
next
not
time.
concrete, but I mean, this happened right before the election. You know, 4 people were killed right before the election.
Well,
I mean, if the deaths of those people aren't,
It was 6 weeks before the election. We fought and won wars in that time, so there's no excuse for this.
I think part
I'm
of it
very
is,
sorry.
as far as
Eric, when we come back, I will give you the closing comments. In the meantime, we have to take another short break. Where does the time go? Stay with us. When we come back, you'll have Mr. Eric Leach's comments. We'll be right back.
Think you found every hazard out here today? Think again. The spot you missed could be a killer. That spot on your skin could be skin cancer. Fact is, if you're a man over 50, you're in a group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma, the kind that kills 1 person every hour. 1 in 5 Americans is likely to develop a form of skin cancer during their lifetime. That's why your best shot is to check for a spot. It's easy. Follow through and check your skin. It could be the save of a lifetime. Go to spotskincancer.org to find out how. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
So many kids' activities today seem to leave out the activity part. New research tells us that just getting children to walk an extra 35 minutes a day could spare them the pain of thinning bones later in life. Encourage your kids to get up, get out, and get moving.
Hello. Hey, Grandma, how about another grape soda?
A public service message on building strong bones for kids from the Pediatric Orthopedic Society of North America and the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Welcome back. We are always running out of time. Eric, you were about to respond to Cassidy's comments. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say there's a lot of static with this issue particularly because people don't know what to think. They either think the Republicans are being overzealous and trying to chase something that might not even exist, or they might actually be onto something. It's hard to tell when the main champions of the Benghazi issue are the goofy Republicans in the House.
Well, it's hard, and I think
Chavez
that's something
from
that
Utah.
we
I mean, yeah.
really, wait, we're going to save this for another show. Yeah, who do we trust? Who do we trust in this? I think it's a tough one. Let us know what you guys think. Send us your ideas, your topics, your comments to thescramble.unlv.gmail.com. You can also watch full episodes of The Scramble at unlv-tv.edu. So for all of us here at The Scramble, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you right back here next time.